The faith is disturbing.
Believe it.
Episode 365, or watching, of the Geeks Under Grace podcast. We're doing this live at twitch.tv / Geeks Under Grace right now. Yeah, I'm here with Shelley Nollan.
Hello.
Lj.Lowery.
Yo.
And Joe Morgan.
What's up, everybody?
I'm so excited to have you back, Joe.
It has been a hot minute.
Yes.
I was trying to think, what did you actually, like, how many years ago?
I think it's been about 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's been so long.
Yeah, I think
Has it been?
3 or 4. It's been at least
It
3.
was surely before COVID. Long before COVID.
Yes.
I
So,
think,
Probably
yeah,
right after
yeah.
PAX
like
South.
4
You were still doing the
years.
podcast when we went to PAX South,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Shoot, I guess it was kind of in between then. Like,
Yep.
oh. Wow.
Yeah. We did PAX South, and I think the next year
Because it was
COVID.
right before you got married.
Yeah, that
I
was
think, and then
2019.
the whole thing about nobody even being able to actually do weddings and stuff because of COVID.
Right, yeah. We got
Yeah.
married. We ended up
Oh,
getting
that's
married May the 4th because
Oh
we
my
knew we couldn't
gosh.
have the wedding in person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And
feel
that
like
was my
it was
wife's
right-
decision.
It was right before that, yeah.
That's
yeah,
so
three-ish, 4-ish years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So may the 4th be with us forevermore.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Love it.
So the way that we usually do these, guys, for the listeners, the watchers, we will take your guys' questions. You guys are welcome to ask questions, and we'll answer them. We got a few questions as well that just kind of reminisce about this podcast and the fact that we've done it. We were just talking about 365 weeks. It's pretty crazy. It's really cool. For those who don't know Joe, well, like I said, was on the podcast. When it started, this podcast wouldn't be here without him. Former president of Geeks Under Grace.
You got two
So-
former presidents right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, LJ's a former president as
Wow.
well.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's true.
So let's start there. Like, I just want to spotlight you, Joe. Like, where have you been? What have you been doing?
So I took some time off, got used to being married and settling into married life. The wife and I actually decided, I got that wandering spirit about me a little bit. I want to create in some capacity. And so after a period of time, the wife and I kind of decided, like, we're going to start a YouTube channel. And so like 2-3 years ago, we started doing one video game review a week. It's under like 3-4 minutes long. And we just did a short video review of a video game, kind of building off of what I did with Geeks Under Grace,
Yeah.
but let me stretch my video editing stuff too.
Right.
And that has kind of grown over time, but it's actually pivoted. Now we do reactions, and that's probably what more people know us for. We do a lot of like NF reactions.
Yes, I watched your. Is it The Search? I think.
Yeah. So we actually need to record another one. We're a couple weeks past recording one, but I'm looking to try to get back into doing the game review stuff because I miss it too. But I've still been writing reviews for Geeks Under Grace, like get review copy, and I still contribute
Yeah, definitely.
a few reviews a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then working full time, I used to work for Walmart as a programmer. I was let go in the middle of COVID and started working for a startup, and we're hoping that we're almost to the point now where we can start making a little money soon. So
That's awesome.
Nice.
been doing that for a couple of years now.
You mentioned that you've been still doing reviews and stuff, and I think that's kind of an interesting note for all of us that we've all kind of stepped back in some capacity. I've stepped back on a ton of things. LJ or Shelley, you were streaming, kind of stepped back a bit, maybe getting back into it again a little bit.
Yeah, it's all dependent on the schedule because it's like I want to, but then it's like, why am I busy every night?
We largely have a different team now,
Mhm.
for the most part, for Twitch.
I'd say, yeah, and LJ, you kind of stepped back in a lot of.
Yeah, I
Different
still
guys.
write reviews as well, and and do this, and that's it.
Yeah. But, you know, you mentioned it's been 4 years, and it's been 8 years, I believe, since the podcast started. Another, like, 2 or 3 years before the Geeks Under Grace started. We've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Let's check these questions here. All right. Just making sure that the Twitch hadn't said anything yet. Should have the chat in a better spot. I'm having to flip through these. So we've shared a lot of laughs and like tears, and there's been some really huge moments. I said on the podcast, but for the podcast team as a whole, I feel like. And so I was just wondering, what's a memory that sticks out for all of you? I know for me, it was probably actually getting to record the podcast together, me, Joe, and Shelley at Shelley's house, which was just such a crazy, surreal moment for all of us.
Well, let's be clear. It's not my house. It's my parents'
Oh, yeah.
not own the home.
That's fair.
We got,
Yes,
what were that dessert we got out there? That I can never remember what those were called. Fetty Wap?
Wop wops.
Wop wops.
Wop Wops.
Yes.
Wop Wops.
We found out recently that people have actually picked up on whatever that is, and have started doing it. Like
There was like a TikTok video
known thing now.
showcasing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a TikTok video, and we were all like, "What?"
Is it still a secret, Shelley? Are you not allowed to share?
Well, no, it's fine. It's fine. I just
Sounds like somebody else had a similar tradition, and it was just like, "Oh."
I bet
Yeah, you
I've
take
told
the-
enough people that it just
Guys,
carried.
no. It's your fault, Cody. That all these
That's
people.
great.
Because I've
That's
told
Yell about
everyone I can since that day. So
upsetting.
that's it. What's a wop wop, Shelley?
Yeah, so you take a Pillsbury biscuit and you whap it to open it, right? And then you take like a rounded stick. It's gotta be a nice thick rounded stick. Like, so not like s'mores. You know, s'mores you usually want like a pointy thin stick. You want a nice round stick.
Like a broomstick.
And then yes, basically. And then you like wrap it around the end, and then you roast it over fire, and then you can stuff it with anything you want. You know, you put like Nutella and strawberries and whipped cream or ice cream or peanut butter or like anything you want. And I'm sure you can make them savory too. I just only ever have them sweet. So yeah. Now you
Peanut
know.
butter and chocolate is the way to go.
Oh, absolutely, so good. You gotta be careful because if you don't cook it well, your bottom's gonna explode. So like, there's some craft in it, you know, like there's some skill that you need. You can't just like go willy nilly.
That could have been a pun right there.
Usually, I recommend you wrap 2 around, and like, it's better, I think, to use the croissant Pillsbury. I think you can also use biscuit. I think you kind of just gotta, get what you can get. But anyway,
Cool.
Yeah.
Now everyone
I'm
knows.
blessed. Now everyone knows.
TikTok
What
knew.
about you, Joe? You have a memory that you remember from?
I've got several from over the years. I mean, it's just the cadence that I used to go through it was every Monday. I had this cadence where I would go, my men's group from church would meet up, we'd get barbecue, and then it's like, all right, got a break from good conversation to go have good conversation over here. And getting to meet everybody in person through PAX West and PAX South.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the Wop Wops and getting to explore Seattle and like seeing it's not just the podcast, but also the ministry of Geeks Under Grace, like getting to see everybody's lives change and grow. And, I've seen Cody and Tia move to Arkansas. I've gotten to see Shelley get married. I've been married. Like, we've all moved around in life, and life has changed since this started. And it's just, LJ's been president. Like, life has changed, man. And it's been cool to see. It's been fun to see, like, God's ever present through it all.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yes.
LJ, anything specific?
My memory ties specifically to like PAX South. I'll never forget when I was getting off the plane because I was meeting y'all. Everyone had showed up before I did, I think. I think we maybe went back. Did we go back for Shelley? I think we went back for Shelley. I don't remember. I just remember getting off the plane, and I remember okay, looking around, where are these guys? I hear Cody's laugh, and I'm like, there they are. And it was to my left. I was like, yeah, like it was just funny that like it's just one of those things. It's like, at first when I started traveling and doing stuff with Geeks Under Grace, my family was like, "Isn't that weird? Like, old people you never met before?" And I'm like, "Well, I talk to them just about every day. Like just about every day during the week, and we podcast, and talk to each other on Monday nights. Like, so it's not weird, like, at all. Like, just because y'all are already my friends, and I knew y'all that well to where I'm like, yep, that's them.
Yeah, I knew about my laugh. That's interesting. So I'll be going to the Nerd Culture Ministry one. Joe, you'll be going too, right?
We're gonna have to back out of it.
Oh no. Okay.
We have tickets. I ended up getting a hold of them and said, hey, I still want our tickets to go to somebody that can use them.
Mm-hmm.
But because we had unexpected travel earlier in the year for family situations,
okay,
I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm hoping.
See, I didn't do my research. Well, a bummer, but
we were.
How dare you not know literally everything, Cody?
Right. We were planning to go, and I'm looking forward to the day that we can meet everybody in that space and hug and.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll continue to do them. It's gonna be a really cool thing, I think. But what I was gonna go with that was our plan is for me to drive to Hugo, Oklahoma, and pick up Colby Bryant, who I have spent only an hour with ever, like in real life.
He was my vice president. I've never met him in person.
Yeah. I want to pick him up. We're gonna ride in my car, and like for everyone else that I tell that to, they just are like, "Isn't that like weird? You've never really met him?" And I'm like, not really. Like I've talked to him all the time.
Yeah.
This organization, if it's, I always think the broad, like what is Geeks Under Grace doing for all the people reading, the website and listen to the podcast and stuff. And it's really easy to do that and then forget that there are 60 volunteers that have all had their lives impacted through all of this, including myself.
A lot of them are former community members, like.
Yeah. Like if nothing happened, if not a single person watched or read or listened to anything that we're doing, it would at least have impacted those 60 people. Again, including myself, in just such crazy ways. And sometimes you look at this like broader picture, you kind of forget that that's happening internally. We made these crazy friendships and some of my closest friendships personally. Cool that it's
my husband's really mad that he hasn't met any of you guys. He's just like, you spend every Monday evening with these people, and I've not met any of them. I'm like, listen, dude, like, you should have gotten on board quicker.
We're gonna find a way.
Yeah,
definitely find a way. He's like,
I'll come do a hike in Washington sometime.
You should.
Ooh, that'd be
really
fun.
There's Washington's beautiful. I've seen some cool.
Let's do it.
The TikToks have been telling me to go hike in Washington, so.
Ooh.
Good. I mean, you should. I literally know so many, and if any, I don't know. My sister knows because she hikes literal mountains.
Oh wow!
That's
See,
awesome.
there you go. Shelley, what about you? What's your favorite memory from?
Pretty much all those, but I think I also obviously loved having y'all out here for Seattle because obviously it's my home turf, and I kind of got to like show everybody around all these cool things, and that was really great. And I think I kind of, that whole experience of being able to show you guys like my town, my city, was really, really awesome. But I think there was also something really special about none of us knowing what the heck was going on at PAC South. And we're all just figuring it out together.
I love
and
that.
We're just like, well, so where's the Airbnb? And what are we gonna do? Food? And we found this weird little smoothie place, and it's probably good, right? And where are we supposed to park? What can we do in San Antonio? So, like, I think those are both like equally very like. We
figured it out. That was a quest we took together.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I obviously love showing you guys around, and like kind of like knowing what was up. But I think there's something really fun and funny about like PAC South, where all of us were just like kind of out of our own, not literally out of our element, but like none of us are from there, and none of us really. Like, I had no experience. I'd never been there before, so I thought that was pretty fun. So I guess those aren't really specific moments, but sort of general things. So
Chaos.
Like, I think if I had to. Sorry, I was gonna say if I had to choose one moment, probably taking you guys to AA Sushi, or not AA Sushi, but Blue Sea Sushi.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because you guys were like, "Oh my gosh,
that place was good.
they're on a
'Cause you and I-
conveyor belt."
You and I went there
Yeah.
too, and that was real cool.
Yeah. That place is gone, by the way. There's
Oh.
sushi.
Oh wow.
It like went bankrupt or something. But it's so funny because I literally that mod
I don't know
pizza
how
that we
I
went
was.
to-
Mod Pizza's still kicking. I saw.
Mod's
yeah.
gone
So
places.
and we went
it's
to
a chain
the
now.
yeah we went to the same mod pizza at Paxos last year, and it made me think.
Nice.
You
Yeah.
guys, I was just like, oh, like, and it's so funny because there were so significantly less people at PAX this year. Like, and it was a reasonable amount of people. And when we were going, it was back to being an unreasonable.
Like pretty much
amount
those
of
same
people.
places you hit with Cody and Joe, we ended up hitting whenever I came like the year after that.
Yeah, exactly.
That
But
was
I thought it was cool. Like, I was like, man, this line goes by so much quicker now. and
Oh,
stuff like that.
I'll never forget when we ordered like Jimmy John's right away that one time, and they're like, "Oh, here's your
Oh,
sandwich!"
yeah.
Like right after I ordered it, I was like,
Jimmy John's
Y'all
is
are
that
so-
quick, dude.
y'all
I
are
ordered
so
Sneaky
Jimmy
fast.
John's.
That's their whole
all the
slogan.
time.
"Y'all are some wizards. How did you know what I was going to order and just have it?"
Yeah, dude.
Chaos Candy asks us, "Are you guys planning on making any Christian video games?" I don't have a programming bone in my body.
I think it would be neat to have like for Geeks Under Grace to eventually like publish one or something like that, or
Yeah,
you know,
cool.
like that'd be big. That's I could see that as like a publishing kind of thing.
I say we're probably more likely to make a tabletop game. I don't know why I
Yes.
think that.
Yes. I think you're
We
totally
have-
right.
A very strong tabletop element.
We do.
Mhm.
I think
Joe,
that's
have you ever thought
totally
about making a video game?
tabletop.
Yeah, and I have a programming background. I've been a professional software developer for 16 years.
I was gonna say you messed around with some kind
Just
of
a little
program in the last
experience.
couple of years, right? I don't remember what the
I
program
have
was.
played around with Unity a
Yeah.
bit, but not
Gotcha.
enough to have that
Right.
kind of chops. And at this point, I'd probably go with Godot or something because Unity has not been doing
Yeah.
great lately.
I don't think I got a
Totally.
chance to talk about that on the podcast. So around that news, I think we took a break that week or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, because yeah.
So
Yeah,
not anytime
that was
soon, Chaos. If you want one, just keep asking us sooner or later. Maybe
There
we'll-
are
There are definitely
people
some out
in the
there.
community. Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
I think the closest I
And
ever
talking
went
about
to is,
Christian tabletop stuff, like
yeah.
Andrew Lowen, who is a member of Geeks Under Grace's community, published a game called Deliverance.
Yeah,
Mm.
we have an interview with
It's
him.
a cooperative player versus environment, angels versus demons game. I've got it sitting on a shelf in there. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. So.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I've heard
so
it's
cool.
really good.
It all looks amazing.
There's some other. I think there's some video games too out there that are being made or are being worked on. What's the Bible one that was basically like the
Bible
history?
X.
There's the one that's where it basically plays like it's from former like Assassin's Creed devs or something, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that one's
Oh, that's
basically
right.
that one's basically the historical mode from the last couple Assassin's Creed games. You get to walk around and
That's
explore.
Huh,
Like
yeah.
so. There's stuff out there, definitely.
Cool, yeah. I was gonna say the closest thing I can get to it is like DMing. I don't know if that counts. But even
I'm
then,
still
I don't know
playing.
what
It's not a
you would-
Christian game, but I've been like I just played Dice Throne last Sunday.
Yeah.
We got that at PAX South.
I just backed the Marvel, the second
Oh,
Marvel.
it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's gonna have the admin in it.
Very cool.
That's definitely out of my realm.
It's so good. Joe, you had mentioned, and I'd written this, and I thought that was kind of cool. We aren't the same people we were when we started recording. Specifically with the podcast and the recording, the process of it all. I guess the news that we've like internalized. I don't know. What is something for everyone? Question for everyone. What's one thing you've learned over the years from recording the show? I think for me, it's probably given me a little bit better ability to speak. I
Yes.
Yeah.
definitely would. You can listen to the beginning of the podcast, like when we first started, and I was always stumbling over my words. So that's an easy one for me, I think.
I'm saying I
Yeah.
think both with podcasting, with streaming, YouTubing, all that, when you go back and you hear yourself say a lot,
Yep.
Yeah.
you learn to cut it out. So I believe I've become a better presenter in general.
Yeah, definitely. You,
For
LJ?
me, I know.
Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go
I
Shelley.
didn't mean to cut in line.
I'm just going through the squares here.
The boxes.
Oh, makes sense.
No, go for it. Go for
yeah.
it.
I was just gonna say that I think for me, also just being able to articulate how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking or why, particularly why I like something. I feel like for a lot of things, it can be really hard to be like, oh, I like this, but I don't really know why, or things like that. And being able to like articulate that. There's been times where I'm not like trying to sell a product to people, but people ask me my opinion on things. Like, oh, that controller you got, how do you like it? I'm like in the market for a new controller, or hey, that game, I'm like interested in that game. I feel like I'm way better at articulating the pros and cons, the in-betweens, my experience, all of that stuff. And people are like, okay, you've sold me. And I'm like, it wasn't my intention. You just asked me, but it's just naturally become that. My rants are no longer just tirades. There's a point to them. There's a point. So that's definitely something I think I've learned. It's all very, very unintentional. It all just kind of happened naturally, I think.
Yeah. Doing the same thing for 8 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You, LJ?
Definitely, I want to echo the thought articulation as well. That's definitely been one that has helped me a lot. And explaining things to people and talking to people. Overall, Geeks Under Grace and like especially going to church and stuff like that, like it's helped me. It's helped my social skills a lot, extremely. But one of the things that I guess from an editing standpoint, like I can't tell you like the technology behind everything on how it works in an audio kind of sense, but especially editing and things like that have turned me into a bit of a casual audiophile, especially like listening to music and different things and just like hearing the way people talk and speak and articulate their thoughts too. Because basically editing, like I go through the whole podcast episode and eliminate things from the background or like clean up the audio and stuff like that. And I kind of was realizing this, especially as I reviewed some, I think the review still has to go up, but I reviewed some real nice Rig headphones recently. And it made me go like, oh my gosh, everything sounds so amazing. Like even our podcast, this sounds so amazing on these headphones, just listening in general. And so it kind of made me realize, like, I didn't realize how much of an audio kind of geek I was, even if it's in the most basic sense. Just hearing, things. And I don't know. It's just in that sense, I feel like I get a unique perspective as well. So,
yeah, I'm glad you highlighted that. If you didn't, I was going to. People probably don't know this, but when LJ started, like, you really didn't know anything about audio editing. You just wanted to be involved, I feel like.
So... thanks to our previous producer who wasn't around for too long, but I was basically I basically filled in, and I was already doing another podcast that I was involved in, and I basically learned everything I do with Geeks Under Grace. I probably Googled or like just learned how to do on the fly.
Yeah,
and now
that's what being a programmer's like too.
I've gotten good at it, like doing things with Geeks Under Grace, and especially this too. Like I help edit. My buddy runs a D&D thing that we're live streaming with a group called Comics on the Cross. I edit their audio for the live stream as well as participate in that campaign. Cool. So it's just like, and then even things I did over here led me to volunteering at church in unique ways. And so yeah, just editing everything. And then so once he left, I was like, oh, well, I've been filling in for you guys. Like, so I guess that leaves me to take the role of editing, and so that's what I've been doing ever since.
We're capturing this podcast specifically a little bit differently, so it might sound a little off compared to like what it normally is.
I'll still clean it up though.
Yeah, cool.
I got ways to clean it up.
But COVID happens, and a lot of other podcasts were doing podcasts remotely. The way that we do these in our own houses. We record them on our own Audacity program on our own computers, and we send LJ those files separately. And big companies, like one of my favorite podcasts is the IGN Game Scoop. They were doing these in studios that were paid a lot of money for to make it all sound good. And when COVID happened, they had to leave that office, and they were in their own homes recording. And LJ, never toot his own horn, but I mean, he was blowing them out of the water with
They
sound quality.
struggled because they were not used to that type of environment, which we had already been doing for a couple of years.
Yeah.
At that point, and so, or a good few years, and so it was weird to be like, wow. It was cool.
Yeah. It was LJ was pulling. That's all thanks to you, and I want to make sure that got a bit of a spotlight. Like you've grown so much as far as just the editing.
I appreciate it.
Editing standpoint of it all. Cool. I going back to kind of what Shelley had said. I wanted to think about like the insights that we've had over the years. I think that another really cool thing about this podcast is when we came into it, like LJ not necessarily knowing everything about editing that he does now, all of us as far as the way that we, like, our opinions at the time were just opinions of some random people, you know, on the internet that you didn't really know. There wasn't a lot of, I just credit, I guess, to what we were saying at that point. And I feel like now, over the years, it's just like, we've got to become professionals in that sense, in a lot of cool ways.
Like, we know what we're doing now.
Yeah. I remember saying, I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was our first year recording. And I remember specifically saying, I want us to sound like we know what we're talking about. Because we didn't. Yeah. We were just reading articles and trying to piece things together and like sound as official as possible.
Make a baby.
Yes, exactly what we did. And we made it. I think we do good. That said, I was wondering if you guys remember any like specific insights that you're really proud of. I think our biggest collective one, it's just so cool to me to see it, like, that it actually happened, was the bundling of streaming services. It was like,
oh yeah,
that's
Netflix and Hulu,
that.
I think, had come out at that point. That was like basically it, and I was like, they're gonna start bundling these things, and it'll be cable all over again.
And then it'll be cable all over again.
And slowly but surely, we got Hulu, ESPN, and Disney Plus all in one bundle. It costs as much as cable to have all the streaming services now.
It really does, because I'm that guy who has like most bill now, and I'm like, I literally became what like we predicted.
You guys remember? You guys have any specific insights that you know? I feel like, Shelley, you've got to have something, because even if it wasn't a prediction necessarily.
I'm trying to think of what else. I remember.
I know one, but I'll let Shelley.
I was gonna say the one that maybe not necessarily biggest, but one that popped out because we were just talking about streaming, was that talking about that one streaming service. I forget what it was called. I want to say it was like,
oh, the COVID one, the one that they tried to put out around
with like a Y or something.
Quibi.
Yeah, Quibi. That's what it was. Quibi. It was cute. Yeah. And we're just like, yeah, this is gonna fail. This is just not lasting. I don't even know if that was necessarily a big insight, because I think that was coming from a mile away. But I think there has to. I can't think of like right on the top of my head, but I am positive there were like game predictions we had before directs and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or whether it be like Nintendo or like a PlayStation 1. I'm trying to think of like anything specific, but I don't know if I can. But I'm almost positive that's how we're like, oh, we're probably going to get it this game, or it's probably going to be this kind of direct. That just was. So.
I think you have unique insights too, Shelley, on just shared universes and like the ideas of nostalgia. I think you called out nostalgia bait, I guess, before it really turned into what it has. I remember you talking about the dangers of it just becoming that, and then it really did a few years later.
Oh, that's true. That's a good thought. I think that was a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, it has all my favorite characters. It has, I remember this from when I was a kid. I'm like, well, you gotta make an original. You gotta make a new, right? You could still remake old franchises as long as there's something unique and cool about it. That's something why, again, like TMNT is going to live forever, because
there's been stuff that have tried and failed, and stuff that have been really successful, like off of that. You know? But
if you just go by pure nostalgia factor, yeah, it doesn't cut it. And MCU is really feeling that burn, I think. So, yeah, totally. Awesome. What were you thinking, LJ? You said you were thinking
so I feel like you kind of predicted this one. I feel like we kind of saw this coming, but it's kind of sad where the state of like Hollywood and the writer stuff and the acting stuff is kind of gone. Because because we always joke like, oh, it's capitalism, it's Hollywood trying to make money, and it's like literally these strikes are happening now because of the greed that has happened in Hollywood. And I just think we've talked about this a lot, and a lot of the time it was a joke, and a lot of the time we're like, just stop, and then it's like, okay, now there are people's careers on the line because of the way the whole
Heck,
thing
I feel like we already started that AI conversation back with Rogue One. Right? And like the de-aging stuff, like
yes,
does
that
mean
is that
you could
right
just
or
throw
wrong?
anybody
AI
in there?
has gotten crazy since then too.
And then I think that really started that conversation for us that early on.
Yeah.
Like AI wasn't even that sort of imminent yet. They were just kind of playing with those ideas, and we were like, no, they can take this really, really far.
Yeah.
And like, oh, maybe it's cool for this scenario, but we don't trust Hollywood to keep it in this scenario.
Right.
It's gonna
Tarkin,
escalate.
it was like, did Tarkin okay this? The guy that played it?
Exactly.
Right.
And escalate it did.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. Joe, it's been a little bit. Do you remember anything off the top of your head?
I don't. I'm sure we had some
I mean,
stuff.
we
We
had to
used
have
to do
some
all the
stuff.
predictions around E3 and stuff. But
I will say,
Totally.
I know we
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
give Cody crap about like the Flaro universe because like that's that's what he was.
So that was
watching
my
at the
next
time.
question. My next question was going to be, and we got a few in the Twitch chat too, but what was some of our worst calls? And my worst call was going to be, I swore for a year that everyone should check out Flaro. And I think that shows,
none of it exists.
That's so
shows
sad.
how much I've grown, because I would have
None of it
never.
exists.
I would never.
That's so sad.
It went kaboom.
I think at least personally thinking, some of my worst calls have to be before I really caught on to how bad nostalgia baiting was. There was a while where I'm like, yeah, we can just remake every game, and that would be a good idea. I remember I was so excited about maybe the potential of Skyward Sword coming to Switch, which it did years later. I was like, years before that happened, I was like, we need Skyward Sword on Switch, blah blah blah. And then eventually, years later, it came out, and I'm like, no, we actually didn't need this. It was wrong.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think I was like, oh yeah, no, it's actually good to have remakes of everything. Whereas now, my opinion is more like, well, every game should just be available. Like, we shouldn't have to remake and pay more and more money for games we've already bought in the past.
We've had multiple conversations on game preservation and how scary it is that doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
Well, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, I mean, is now available, but had disappeared for the longest time.
Yeah, it was gone for a while.
LJ, worst call?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, to be honest, because I wasn't really sure where you were going with this question.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
I was like, I don't even know if I answered it right. But
Right.
I think so.
I'm not entirely sure at this point. Like, I'm trying to think of what that would be.
That's fine.
It would be harder ones. I just knew the Flaro thing had to be brought up, but I was like, I'll ask just so I can get that in. We got a couple questions here, so...
let's take those.
Chaos Kane says, with such a vast amount of gamers online, how does Geeks Under Grace plan on reaching those who are currently struggling with gaming addiction and who need Jesus? You will love Deliverance and Andrew and Chaos Kane. Definitely check out our interview with him. He actually, that was like why he got into board games, is because he had a gaming addiction that he decided he was just going to be done with. So super great story. I don't know if, I mean, we have things on struggling with gaming addiction. We've talked about it before, and just using discernment and stuff. I think that Geeks Under Grace doesn't really like. There are ministries out there that would exist for that, and I don't know if that's what our purpose is. I'm not saying that it's not an important problem. I just don't think we're equipped for it.
I think those are two different questions, right? Because we're not really equipped. Nobody on staff there's probably a few on staff, but we're not licensed counselors. Most of us are just volunteers. Mm-hmm. And so, like, facing something like that's not really, I mean, we can pray for you and be here to lend an ear, that sort of thing, but we're not licensed counselors to help guide that sort of process. Mm-hmm. Whereas you say, those that need Jesus, well, we all need Jesus. And that's what we're in the trenches for. Right.
Yeah. definitely. Yeah, I think
I'll
the conversation for us would be like, it was like, here's the intersection of gaming and Christianity. Here's how Jesus and God can be found within these video games. And then you go, what if I'm addicted to him? And at that point, we're like, well, we probably should stop having this conversation. We should probably find you and get you plugged in somewhere that would, Geeks Under Grace is just not helping you in that at that point.
Right. I think we can all agree that even though we are a geek gaming, board gaming, anime focused ministry, if that's something that you're struggling with addiction to, we by all means would say step back away from that.
Yeah.
I'm very few, like Joe said, very few are equipped for this thing, but I personally went through other things and other resources I could probably direct you to, but that's not many of us in the ministry. Like, for me, Celebrate Recovery, that's how I got through a lot of my previous addictions. You could, there's ways to get plugged in. Different churches around the country have that sort of thing, but that's for any addiction. It's just not drugs or alcohol or anything, but those are people who have all been through it before, and it's like a 12-step program like AA and stuff like that. So it's like, I definitely know of resources that I point people to. But
yeah, I definitely think we should probably get someone plugged into the right spot.
Yes.
I just don't think we would be the right spot for gaming.
Right.
It's a website about gaming, so
yeah.
Yeah, I think we're much more. You already mentioned it before, but I think we're well more our sort of culture. Even even within our Discord, even with the conversations we have, it's way more discernment focused.
We got back on golf because we all know we have a problem. So
I know we have this. What's cool about Geeks Under Grace and kind of the ministry and the community is that you do have Christians of all different walks. You have folks like me who've been a Christian their whole life, maybe, but then you have like brand new Christians, which is really cool that we have a space that kind of welcomes all of those. But I think something that's cool that I don't engage in the Discord very, very often, but every once in a while I'll see discussions where people are asking questions like that. Just like, well, what about playing this game? What about that game? One, we have a lot of helpful articles on those sort of things. Mm-hmm. And two, we have people in the community who are willing to be open and honest and say, this is a discernment thing, and what's good for you may not be good for me, and that sort of thing. We can talk about it. What are you comfortable with? What feels like glorifying? What's not? Blah blah blah. So I think it's not gaming addiction. It's kind of different than that. But I think what our community does strive for and is good at is those discernment conversations, because you also have sort of the articles to build off to, and even our reviews. I mean, our reviews always have those content warnings. So if someone is interested in a game, they can look at the review and say, well, this is actually something I'm trying to avoid really hard because of all these reasons, and now I know to avoid it because of this review. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I was thinking.
I want to ask this question, and it kind of toes in line with this, which is pretty cool, and that is recording the podcast over the years. How has it helped shape your faith? Has it shaped your faith in any way? I think for me, it definitely has, just the way that I view content. That was kind of the whole Geeks Under Grace as a whole did that, right? We talked about discernment from day one. It was, how do you play video games to be a Christian? Discernment, and that was the answer. And so really digging into what that meant, I think was easiest for me through recording the podcast and kind of having to, right? Whenever I'm watching something or I'm playing something, Christianity, what Jesus would want, what he wouldn't want, what maybe he's trying to say through the message of that video game, movie, or whatever. I always picking things apart in that way, and that's because of this show and having to articulate those thoughts on the podcast itself. So for me, that would be just the ability to discern has really been strengthened by this podcast. Totally. Who else wants to go?
I was going to say, I think I agree with that, but I also think for me too, this might sound very general, but I think it's helped me kind of learn that in all things there's nuance, and there's not really a lot of black and whites most of the time. And I think that just the fact that we are live talking to each other about these things, and we all come from different backgrounds, we're all different people, right? And I think that helps our conversation because we kind of have that diversity in that way, where we all are, we're all different ages, and we're coming from different places, different gaming backgrounds, different church backgrounds. And so I think for me, like just being able to have that conversation of like, oh, this company did this weird thing. Like, how do we feel about that? And there's some things where we can all pretty much agree, like, yeah, that's pretty bad. But then again, you kind of have to explain why. You kind of you can't just jump on this bandwagon train Twitter that's saying everything, you know, kind of spitting fire for like no
echo
reason.
chamber.
An echo chamber, exactly. It's kind of helped me get out of that a little bit, I think. Just, it's such a natural, again, we do this weekly, so it's like just a very normal practice to say, well, let's talk through this a little bit. Let's externalize this somewhat. Let's not just say things, and let's not just join what everybody else thinks. Let's create our own thoughts and kind of like bounce off of each other for that, because then you can just, you know, that's a skill, and you can apply that other places too. And I think that's really important to not just be so internet pilled that you're just like, well, everything is either good or bad, or like this or that. Like, even if something is good or bad, like we can articulate kind of why, or again, like these more complicated issues with like AI and things like that, we can kind of like articulate that and kind of come to a point where we're like, hey, this kind of makes sense for us as we're all kind of talking about it. I don't know if that makes sense. That's
cool. Joe, we can expand this into what you're doing now with Coffee and Adventure as well, if you like.
Well, I was going to say, so you all know Dallas and Celeste.
Yes.
I got to meet them a few weeks ago.
We got to meet them a couple of years ago with Cody and Tia.
Yeah. They haven't met Shelley yet. That's the last one on there. You guys were talking about Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh, yeah, I made that joke. Yeah.
But Rachel and I did a thing with them a few months ago to help them raise some money to try to get their 401c3 application.
I was up in the graveyard shift on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that happened over the course of that, I'll tell you where I'm going with this, is that my lesson from this podcast has been, you never know what seeds you're planting and how those are going to grow. Because in the course of doing that podcast with them, we all kind of got put in a chat and with everybody that was doing it.
Yeah.
And one guy just kind of went, "Is that Joe Morgan?" I was like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Joe Morgan, bro.
Yeah, he was like, the Joe Morgan. And then he went silent for like 30 minutes. And Dallas pulled me aside and was like, "Dude, you're like a hero to this guy." And I was like, I thought it was a joke at first, but he came back and he was like, "No, like, because of this podcast, not just me, but this team of people and how God has used us, helped him through some times." And that's one of those things, we don't know how God's using us, right? Like, as far as I was concerned, I was coming here having conversations with friends, goofing around, talking about games. Like Cody said, he was going to get emotional. I'm getting emotional.
I am too.
Yeah.
We come here and we talk about games and goof around, and that's what we did for years. It took 7.5 years for me to find out that anyone cared about what we were doing here, and then it affected them.
Yeah.
But it's so meaningful to find out that God used us in that way.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're doing, what God is using you for, and what seeds you're planting, and how those are going to be harvested.
And we end the podcast there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, there's brands though. Like even I, smaller scale. I was on a guest on another podcast, and one of the other, we were kind of talking about. Sorry, what? Oh.
No, I'm trying to get my camera to.
For those listening, Shelley's talking to Joe, just said stop with his hand because his AI camera.
AI camera's right now.
Okay. Yeah, it was the I want to say it was the Boss Rush or something podcast. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but we had a mutual listeners who were like, "Oh, it'd be really great to do crossover." So I did crossover with these guys, and I recorded a podcast with them, and it was so funny because we were kind of like talking, and I mentioned like, because they're not a Christian podcast, they're just getting one, but kind of talk about me being Christian a little bit, and they're just like, "Oh, that's cool, right?" And then I talked to like one of the guys, and he's, and I mentioned you know, because he lives in my area. Somehow we figured that out off the podcast. Like somehow we figured out, but you know, I mentioned my husband's a teacher in the area, and he mentioned that he's a teacher in the area. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like where do you teach? He's like, oh, I teach at this school. I'm like, I totally know that school. Here's where my husband teaches. And my husband teaches at a private Christian school here in the area. This guy's like, I grew up in that church, or in that. I went to that school, basically.
Oh, wow.
He's like, and he's not really a Christian anymore, as far as I'm aware. But he like did the whole kit and caboodle. He like grew up in that school, and it was like really cool having a conversation with him. And I haven't really followed up with him since. But I'm just like, I really hope that I don't know why he stopped being Christian, but I really hope that I was able to like make that connection. And again, sort of like maybe it planted a seed, because sometimes you don't be empathy.
You never know.
So I thought that was pretty cool. I was just like, this seems like a pretty like like I don't know if that's gotta tell you something. It tells me something. Hope it tells you something. That's kind of what I was thinking. So. Totally.
I don't even know what the question was.
I don't know how we segue.
Yeah, no, the question turned. I was trying to think, because the question was you know, how it was.
I record the podcast. Help check your faith. LJ, did you?
Yeah. No, but I mean, I feel like this went in a different direction that I really want to keep it going. As far as the faith thing, I definitely unpack shows and different things, like you said, especially on the podcast. Like there are certain things. It's like, you know, for our listeners, I'm like, hey, I watched this thing, but just so you know, it's got this in it, it's got this in it, and here's why you might be comfortable with it, you know, uncomfortable with it, and, you know, kind of a thing. But to just echo everything that Joe was talking about, and to, you know, what Shelley was talking about, I guess this is another like cool moment. I was at my buddy's in North Carolina on vacation a few months ago, and so I'm walking along. We had just gotten into the convention center in North Carolina in GalaxyCon. This is on the East Coast, and so I hear somebody goes, "LJ," and I'm like, "Huh?" And I'm like, I didn't know the person. I was like, wait, what? Who said my name? And he's like, hey, man. And then I was like, do I know you? And then it was a listener, you know, like, and it was somebody that definitely asked us some challenging questions, which we loved, you know, which it took a minute, but we kind of were like, okay, this is good. We need this, you know, like as podcasters. But it was just like, it was trippy to just be like, I mean, I think the dude ended up being Facebook friends with a couple of us, you know, anyway, at some point. But it was just like, oh, like it was just like Joe was saying, like we just, you know, it was somebody that, you know, we had planted that seed. We had, you know, that he had gotten to know us through the show, and it was just so weird. Like, not that we're like celebrities or anything, but it just felt really like, whoa, that's a weird feeling. But it all goes back to God, you know. It all goes back to why we're here. And you know, we don't, you know, we may not have like a ton of listeners like a bunch of IGN podcasts, but we never know who's listening. And no matter, you know, what we say, because I do the, you know, because of Geeks Under Grace, like my buddy that I went to go visit with in North Carolina, he got into podcasting and content creation. I met a bunch of other awesome groups across the internet, like the Infinity Bros, who I've gotten to be real close friends with, Comics and the Cross. A couple of those guys, like I met them in real life in North Carolina and stuff like that as well. And so it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, Geeks Under Grace was there. Like our podcast was probably one of the first podcasts to be there for this Christian geek kind of, I want to say it's a movement. And I'm not necessarily saying Geeks Under Grace started it, but we were right there on the ground floor of it all. And so it's just like
you gotta have people to have a movement. So
yeah, and it's
we're in there.
Yeah, and so, and I go back to like my faith, because I definitely had, like, I guess to tie this all back, in the last couple of years, I basically left my job out of church. I almost left church altogether. I've definitely been going through sort of a deconstruction phase, which sounds bad. You know, that's a bad word to a lot of Christians. But one thing is, I've never lost my faith, and it's because of organizations like Geeks Under Grace and people I feel like I could be real with. Like, you know, like there's the dangers of church culture that, like, I mean, I'm not going to get into that whole conversation right now, but it's just, there's a lot of, you know, one of the best thing that's kept my faith going and kept my faith strong is because real conversations with real people. when I got to Geeks Under Grace, LJ's just finding an excuse to play video games, and it's like, nope. When I started traveling, when I started doing this for recording a podcast, it became one of those things where people around church and around my family and stuff were like, wait, this thing is legit. Like it's not just a way for or to have an excuse for it. So it's just, and that's like organizations like this and just being around real people, not just looking at things from a Sunday pulpit perspective or just, things we see on Sunday, it's just, there's so much more beyond that real interaction. I've met some amazing people that I, stay accountable with on the daily. Just, as, when it comes to my faith, and people I've met, people I would have never met because of Geeks Under Grace. And so that's like why, there's an article I think Rapzilla did recently with a bunch of Christian rappers, and it's like, well, what makes you, I forgot what the article was, but it's like, what makes you still be a Christian, or like what, or why, what, what was it about your faith that you can't like turn back on? And I didn't read the whole article and stuff like that, but it was a whole series they did with all these rappers. It's like, why can't you, why can't you disregard your faith? Like what makes it real to you, kind of thing. And it's stuff like this for me that like I can never lose my faith because of the things I've experienced and the people I've interacted with. So yeah.
I'm just thinking of this, and I don't know. I think it's probably what we're saying. We've all had these experiences because of this podcast, and so I'm not saying go out and start a podcast necessarily. Yeah. If you want to, I would go for it. But I think that one thing is really crazy to all of us is just that a life was impacted because of something we did, and it's such a it's such a strong, powerful thing to get to be a part of that, and the way you do that is just by like getting plugged in somewhere. It doesn't have to be a podcast, it doesn't have to be a Christian ministry. You can go to your local church and start unstacking chairs before Sunday services, or greeting people at the door, serving coffee, whatever. And I can tell you that if they let slip that you changed one person's life, that's enough. It just is. I don't. The fact that you got to be a part of that tapestry that God's making is just such a powerful thing. And like I said, if we find out that you've changed one person, it could make years of work worth it. So that would be my advice. If you see us, you're like, man, I want that. Just go get plugged in somehow, somewhere. Maybe that is. If you are a writer, we have geeksundergrace.com/write, I think, write with us or something like that. We have articles that you can write. If you are a writer, if, you wanted to start a podcast, you could do that. Twitch streaming, there's so many different ways to get plugged in the gaming side of things, the geek side of things. But if you're like, man, I don't really know if I could do any of that kind of stuff, you can hold the door open for people at church and welcome them in. Or serve coffee, or if you're like, I'm not extroverted, you can still go. They will find a place for you in a church to help serve. And like Joe said, you never know what. I couldn't stay an introvert
and live in Louisiana. It was just impossible. people want, especially going into church, people want to hug you and tell you hello, and I'm just like, get away from me.
I mean, I don't know. There's so many different churches, but for our church, like, we have places for introverts. If you're an introvert and you don't want to, be at the greet team, because that could be really intimidating to some people, then they have little communication cards that got to go in the back of every seat. And those communication cards are super important, because that's literally people write their information down, and then the pastor will go and call them and ask them if they need anything to pray for. And somebody had to sit there and go through and put each one of those little cards in one of those chairs. They didn't have to interact with anyone to do that. But they've probably changed a lot of lives in our church, specifically. And
that's crazy that you said that, because that was one of my daily job, facilities team member at my old church. Just putting a little card like that in the back of a chair
You never know. There's always something that you could do.
That's kind of wild to me, like especially like 800 plus of them that we used to. It's like wow, somebody's life was changed because they wrote down their information on one of those little cards.
I feel like if God wants to somewhere, he'll put you there, and it's a privilege if you get to hear back from that. But whether or not you actually do get to hear back from that, you kind of just have to have faith and that you're there for that reason or any reason. If any reason's good enough for God, it's good enough for you.
Right.
At least that's how I kind of view it.
Joe said
if God
7
wants me
years
here for
before
any
he found
reason,
out.
it's good enough. Exactly, right? And it's obviously a huge privilege to be able to kind of like see the fruits of your labor. But if not, you kind of just have to keep plugging away, which is obviously can be really disheartening for a lot of people if you're doing something for so long and not seeing any of those fruits. But gotta have faith a little bit, and sometimes you do see those fruits, which is gonna be really cool.
We do have to wrap up. And Joe gave you a heart out at 8. We got 5 minutes.
9 yet. Yeah.
Or 9. Yeah. 9. I can tell time. I'm still in Denver.
I can't.
Yeah. So our last question. Many listeners don't know that we pray before each podcast, and we kind of just pray for what we're hoping and expecting from recording every week. And so that kind of ties into what we've just been talking about. But
this is a great question.
Yeah, what do you hope listeners gain from what we do? And again, you can extend that to Coffee Adventures Joe, if you like. For me, I think I'm going to get I think you guys are going to have more meaningful answers than I do. But for me, what I think is really cool about our podcast is it's always a Christian podcast, but it's very much in the mindset of you don't make Christian shoes by putting little crosses on the shoes. You make Christian shoes by making good shoes. And so I think our podcast, a lot of the times, for better or for worse to some people, it can really be like, it legitimately to me is one of the best places to get like the video game news, movies, and TV. Like, Christian or not, I think that if you're into that information, we're one of the best sources for it. It's all centralized. You don't have to listen to a gaming podcast and a movie podcast and a TV podcast. Mm-hmm. And I don't know anyone else that's really putting all of it together like we do. And so to me, that's kind of what I want to be. I want to show that Christianity can be woven into everything that you do. And just because you do that, it doesn't have to be this like explicitly preachy little crosses on the shoes thing. Yeah, go ahead, LJ.
My thought was praying gets us not only does it get us focused, but it helps us on the right track of saying things that reflect on the kind of organization we are and ultimately the kind of people that we are. We don't want to say, I don't know, like it keeps us on track and it keeps us in the right mindset when we do record. There are a few times here and there where we've gotten a little spicy, but it's like we're not too spicy, like with some things. But it's like, even so, I gotta, not saying we do this all the time, but even so, I can edit things out, if we decide, okay, maybe that was too much.
We are not perfect. There have been times where we're right. What were we thinking?
Whoops. Shouldn't have said that, kind of a thing. I've been there plenty of times. But it's just one of those things where it's like we, by praying before.
You can watch us live on the Discord.
Episode, yeah, that's true. You can catch everything without the edits, if you want. But anyway, it keeps us focused and it keeps us with that mindset that we want to have because we are ultimately making content for the Lord, Yeah. And then, but like you said, we want the quality to reflect that as much as we do get in those awesome faith topics and how it pertains to what we do on occasion, especially if the news pertains to it. Or if we got to do something really cool and geeky and something we can tie into, the ministry and stuff. Yeah, that's my answer. It keeps us on track.
Shelley?
Cool. I'll answer quick. I think for me, one really cool, important aspect that I want listeners to take away is the fact how it's not just easy, it's effective to just be able to talk with friends about things you're excited about. Things like video games and movies and TV. Obviously, you don't need to be always up and up on the news like we are, But that's
Sometimes
a really
it's a
easy way
curse.
to just.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously, no, it is because my husband even will say, "Oh, did you hear about this?" I'm like, "Freaking, I knew about this months ago." You're not hot, so
That happened to me the other day. Somebody's like sending this thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew about that already.
I'm like, "I knew about this," or like, "Oh yeah, that was canceled." Whatever. Anyway,
Yes.
it is a curse sometimes, but I think it's just a very like some people are like can get really caught up in like, well, how do I even like minister to people? How do I even talk to people? How do I even make friends? Like, just start with what you're excited about, video games you're playing, movies you're watching, and then maybe they're also watching it. Then you can have a conversation about it, and that's how form a relationship. And it's honestly, it's not just kind of easy. It's fun. It can be really fun. So that's something. And again, you could still have like that, Christ-centered mindset throughout the whole time. It's not like geeking out and having, being excited about games and movies and TV is not glorifying. Right? Like, you're partaking in other people's creation. We create because of our creator. We are sub-creators, to quote Tolkien. That's how it works, right? So it's not like being excited to create and partake in other people's creations and be excited about that is not like, I personally think that can be glorifying in certain
and
ways.
we do this on one of the hardest days of the week too, usually, like
I
so
know, like Mondays, baby.
The prayers, I know it strengthens us when we've had a hard day.
Yeah,
for sure. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
And then Joe, before we wrap up.
Yeah, I want to echo kind of what Cody was saying and what Shelley, everybody here. We had this conversation in video game chat earlier this week about being creative and that being glorifying to God. And I would say, in everything you do it as though doing it for the Lord.
Yes.
And then on top of that, like, keep planting seeds.
Yeah.
Oh, amen.
All right.
Easy. Wrap it up.
Yeah. We will end the podcast, episode 365, there. Joe Morgan, where can they find you at?
Find me on Twitter. Well, I guess it's X now, isn't it?
Stop. It's still Twitter. On this podcast, it's Twitter.
Okay. At Joe Knows Games or at Coffee ADV Gaming. And YouTube at Coffee and Adventure.
LJ, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at LJ the Paladin.
Shelley?
You can find me on Twitter at TheShellshock24.
You can find me on Instagram at Cody Armour. Keep gaming, keep praying, and God bless.
Bye-bye.
Cool. Oh, I gotta end it. I forgot. That's a thing.
I was gonna say, you gotta...
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Geeks Under Grace podcast. We love hearing from you, so feel free to ask us questions or just comment on the show by using the hashtag GUGcast on Twitter or by joining the GUGcast questions channel in the Geeks Under Grace Discord. If you like this episode, consider leaving a review or rating of our show on your favorite podcast app. If you want even more Geeks Under Grace, you can always go to geeksundergrace.com. We love you all so much, so thank you for listening.
It's on!